Welcome, everybody. My name is Tyler Prochazka. I'm the features editor for Basic Income Earth Network's Basic Income News. I'm joined today by the filmmakers of the Bootstraps film, which is an upcoming basic income documentary. Ms. Deia Schlosberg and Mr. Conrad Shaw are joining me today. How are you guys doing?
Hi.
Hello.
So,
Great.
yeah, okay. So I'm really interested in this because I've always thought that basic income needed more media. We needed more real life stories to kind of describe the impact that it will have on an individual. Because I think we get into a lot of the, back and forth about statistics, and the human stories kind of get lost in the process. So I wanted to ask you two, what was the initial inspiration for wanting to make a documentary like this?
I think for me, Deia is more of the established documentarian, and I just knew I really wanted to do something about basic income, and I think more like an analyst engineer. But she said we should really do something with human stories. It's much more compelling, and from there we started putting it together, an idea, and I don't know, it just became clear very quickly that this was a much more accessible way to tell the story, and a way that no one else seems to be doing it, by actually showing the human stories, and rather than just talking about logistics and philosophy, to counter the tendency in people to worry about other people being lazy, to othering. That this is a very direct way to sort of give argument to that by showing actual people and what they would do.
And Deia, was it a similar process for you as well? How did you two end up coming to collaborate on this project initially?
Well, I had just come off a multi-year film about climate change and community value systems, called How to Let Go of the World and Love All the Things Climate Can't Change. It's a Josh Fox film, and it was so all-encompassing for so long. I was any film you go into, you want to choose very carefully, because it's going to consume your life for the next several years and then some. So I only do projects that I feel really compelled by and really believe in.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out what my next, big life chapter was going to be. And Conrad and I had been talking about basic income for some time, and then once the idea of following people came about, then it kind of clicked. Like, at that point, I was really excited about making this film. I didn't want to make another film that was just describing it and talking about the theory. I wanted to follow individual people and tell stories of individuals, and connect with the audience that way.
And so when I was going through your website, it explained that you're working with an existing basic income pilot program. Can you kind of explain that partnership?
Well, that's a little bit of a twist. So there are the ones that are going on, like Oakland and Ontario, and there's stuff going on in Kenya and Finland, and people are following these, right? And people are documenting these. But what we really saw as something that we wanted to contribute was the American pitch. We're Americans, and we wanted to have as big of an impact as possible in a place that we know that we understand better. So we wanted to present something that could actually be a useful tool in the movement, to the greatest extent we could. And so we wanted to do an American pitch. But the problem we see with the pilots that are going on, which we see as very valuable, and much more rigorous and intensive studies than we're planning, is that they're very localized. Like if you have a pilot that comes out of Oakland with wonderful results, it could still get dismissed by 80% of the country, or
Sure.
no one will read the article if it's not covered well. So we decided pretty early on that, there's enough of a backing and explosive support coming up right now for basic income that we were going to just really go for what we thought needed to be done to really tell the story right and do our own pilot. And our own pilot is a very small pilot, tailored just for the purposes of filming a diverse cross-section of American lives with a basic income. So we're actually casting 15 to 20 people from all walks of life, from all around the country, to be our subjects. And we're raising the money to.
And where are you in the process right now for selection?
Very early. We don't want to. For obvious reasons, we don't want to promise anything we're not going to be able to deliver. So we want to wait until we have all the funds raised before we enter into these agreements with people. But we do have several characters in mind that we would love to, collaborate with and see what they're able to do in their lives if they were given a basic income. Really compelling stories that larger societal issue. Yeah.
And how are you doing the fundraising? Are you guys going through, a self-fundraising phase? What's the process on that?
We've got a few phases in mind. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to launch a crowdfund through a San Francisco crowdfunding platform for homeless support called Hand Up. Rose Broom is the leader of that, and basic income is a big passion of hers. So we're working closely with her and a team of people out there. But we've got a good amount of money already seed funded, and we're looking for more people on the side to sort of bolster it and give us matching funds. And that way we want to really push it out to the public and give it a chance to go viral and make as much as we can that way. And then beyond that, we have plans for a private event in New York, and reaching out to other donors and sponsors and things. Our main priority right now is raising the budget for the pilot, and then our secondary focus is the budget for our production, because that can be raised more piecemeal, and we're pretty cheap.
Sure.
As far as goes. Our main concept for the crowdfund that's happening in a couple of weeks that we think will help it get some buzz and some press beyond, having support right off the bat, is people on our list, on our mailing list. So every time we hit a multiple of $50,000, we're going to do a drawing from our mailing list, and the winner will get to pick an American of their choice to be a subject in our movie, which means they'll get a basic income. They can pick themselves, they can pick their kid, They can pick a stranger. But the idea that it'll sort of be a lottery of the people who are pushing it and involved and engaged to be able to participate in the casting or even in the film itself. Hopefully that'll get people pretty psyched up about it.
And so what's the timeline? It sounds like you're sort of in the beginning stages. Do you have a timeline that you have in mind?
Yeah. So we have done a whole lot of shooting at this point, but all with experts and UBI advocates, and the plan is to kind of release that material over the course of the trial period, to kind of explain the concepts and little shorts that will get people involved and explain things from all different perspectives. But as far as the trial goes, ideally we'd start it late spring, early summer, so that we can run it for the full 2 years and be able to enter the
election discussion. So yeah, we're planning a 2-year program, a 2-year pilot, so that because 1 year doesn't seem like enough time for someone who really needs money to make changes. It's more like stopping the bleeding phase. And ideally, with basic income, you want it to be guaranteed for the rest of someone's life, and you want it to be community-wide. But for our purposes, we thought at least 2 years would be much more beneficial than one, and it would allow us to, in the meantime, use our shorts and things and our materials to help with the midterm elections and in the interim, but release our film early in 2020, just as the presidential primaries are starting to warm up, and become able to contribute to that dialogue.
Trying to spotlight on this issue.
So your intention is around 2019 for a full release.
Yeah, so late 2019 or early 2020, depending on like what festivals take it, or if and where we get distribution. There are a lot of ways. To go about it, but the idea is late 2019 or early 2020.
And so I'm curious, both of you have diverse experiences. How is this project different from what you've worked on in the past?
I haven't ever followed individuals for 2 full years. So I'm really excited about that. Really excited to get deeper into people's stories and be able to explore, well beyond surface level of just their authentic stories of what they deal with, and I think that will go far in combating the othering that we were talking about.
Sure.
Just having this window into other people's lives and struggles and dreams.
And then for me, I mean, Deia's the documentarian. She's sort of established herself at this point. I came originally from an engineering background, and I came to New York to be to get into acting and filmmaking and writing. And I've been doing that more in the narrative, the fictional space for a few years. And this is my first documentary project working with Deia. We knew we liked the way we worked, and we complement each other's skills well. So we're taking on this one together, and yeah.
It's going well so far.
The division of labor is great because she has the editing talent and the experience, and I like to talk to people, so I do the interviewing. But
Sure.
Going well.
So in your kind of process of finding your characters for your film, what stories have you encountered so far, and why do you think these diverse set of people? Can you kind of give some maybe broad examples of why these people you think would be able to utilize basic income?
We can give some very specific examples because we have the ones we've looked at already. So we have a few on the East Coast. We've looked in New York and Boston, and then a couple in mind in Montana. But on the East Coast, we have a homeless man who is bright and sharp and witty, and he spent 20 years of his life in jail because of a sort of a youthful gang incident when he was younger, where he was sort of the victim and then retaliatory person up. That's not as important as the fact that he spent 20 years in jail, and then he spent 11 years on the street collecting bottles and cans, because there's really no other option for him. But he's a very bright and engaging guy. There's another guy in Boston who's currently in jail for a similar situation. He's been in jail half of his life, and he's up for parole, and he declined his last parole because he's afraid of trying to reintegrate into society.
Yeah, so I mean, with those, we're kind of exploring recidivism and how basic income could ameliorate that issue on a huge scale. Another potential character is a young woman who is an immigrant who
from Lebanon.
She married, came to this country, and started school as in radiology. She subsequently got divorced and had trouble paying her tuition. She had a 3.9 in radiology, loved it, was doing great, and was told not to continue studying because she was a few $100s behind on her tuition.
It was 300, I think she said, 300 bucks behind, and they kicked her out of the school, and she had a 3.9 in radiology. Now she works at Dunkin' Donuts, and she's brilliant. These are people that, you know, are very clear cases. So the start of our pilot, the characters we found so far are the very obvious, very clear, lower class immigrant or homeless. But we do want to get a wide swath of the walks of life of America. So, you know, we want to head over to the Rust Belt in the South and get manufacturing and farming, and we want to get someone upper middle class, you know, someone white collar. We want everyone to be represented so they can watch the film and relate.
Some of the other characters are part of the gig economy, so they don't have the stability that other people do, and they're dealing with medical issues right now. So just looking at how all those things compound and how UBI could impact that. Yeah, so lots of really engaging people that we're excited to see what they do.
And so what was their reaction when, you know, when you contacted them for this potential opportunity? What was their initial thought process?
Keep it quiet because we haven't told them yet. No, we're waiting to raise the money first. They've actually given us their time and attention because they just wanted to share their stories. But nobody knows. I mean, we told them we're making a movie about basic income, but nobody knows that we're going to approach them with
one
with a basic income.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we don't want to tell anybody there's a possibility that they'll receive this until we raise the full amount, because there's just a lot of ethical concerns there. People start planning, and yeah, we want to have that established and solid before people start to think about their lives differently.
Yeah, they're not on our mailing list. They're not going to see this, but we're hoping to raise the funds soon and be able to surprise them with this information.
Well, I hope you don't go too viral then, because then they might find out.
That's not a nice thing to hope.
Well, if we do go viral, we shouldn't have a problem raising the funds, and then, you know,
yeah,
we won't face this circular.
Yeah, everybody follow and share, and
that's true.
It'll all work out.
Then we won't have to deal with it.
So I was reading your article about the American dividend, and you mentioned this idea of how going big. Yes, and you mentioned, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay. So I was wondering.
Are you still there?
Imagine happening amongst your cast of characters.
Oh.
I'm sorry, we lost a lot of that. We lost a lot of. Can you just start with the article again? Sorry.
So yeah. So you talk about how in your article about how you can sort of allow for risk taking and these positive behaviors. Is that what you're looking for in your film? What exactly do you expect to see from your cast of characters?
I mean, that's what we're hoping for. I mean, we are proponents, but we're also documentarians with, high ethical standards. So, if it turns out that the fears that we think are ridiculous, that everyone goes and starts doing drugs, turn out to be true, then we'll record that. But what we hope and expect for is that people will take the opportunity with this extra little bit of leverage and economic power, this empowerment, and better their lives. And that's what we're hoping to see and expecting to see. But it's up to the characters themselves to prove us right or wrong.
And the goal is to fund 15 to 20 individuals for the full 2 years, so that there's a good cross section and there's a good diversity of situations that people are in and outcomes. And then from those 15 to 20, we'll select a handful with the most compelling stories that illustrate the concept the best, and go into those few in detail for the final film, and use the other stories to supplement, perhaps do shorts or a series. We're not sure eventually how we'd end up using the rest of that material, but we definitely want to, keep building media tools for this movement.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go in great depth with 20 different people in a film, but all will be covered, and all of their progress will be covered. So it'll be released one way or the other.
So, I mean, do you have any kind of worry that one of your participants might use it in a bad way, and this might become, the critics of basic income will use that against the movement? Is there any worry about that outcome?
I think it's better to embrace that. I think it's better to admit that UBI is not, basic income or the American dividend or whatever you want to call it, is not something that will result in an immediate utopia. People still have problems. The amount we're giving them, $1,000 a month, is not like winning mega jackpot. It's just enough to have some security. So we'll embrace that, and it'll be an important part of the discussion. And I think in the end, it lends more credibility if you can take this sort of information and say, well, in someone's case, did it turn out to be not as good in the long run, and that's 1 out of 20 people, or is this a person that actually cost society less because he was not on the street anymore or not in prison? There's a lot of ways to discuss it. It's important to be very open and honest about what happens. And sure, we have a lot of curiosity and worries about our characters because we care about them.
And I want to ask some logistical things. Are you completely implementing this on your own, just between you two? Are you going to partner with some basic income experts? What's the plan there for implementation and following the subjects? How much is it just between you two?
Yeah, sure. We're the two of us want to just focus on the film, and once we raise the money for the trial and set it up, then we want to be hands off with the money, with the administration of that. So we're in the process of trying to partner with a nonprofit who will administer the funds that are raised to the subjects, and that budget will be completely separate from the filmmaking budget, and we won't have anything to do with that. And yeah, I mean, the plan is to work with an accountant and a lawyer who's familiar with negotiating those systems.
Yeah, just the ins and outs of the legal logistics.
And yeah, I mean, essentially, once the trial is set up, our role is to document, and we don't want to interfere with the trial. We're not going to be the ones, distributing money in any way.
So this is to say, we're talking to a few different organizations and trying to figure out who is going to be the administrator. But we are still in the market. So if there's a 501c3 out there that wants to be part of this, reach out to us.
And over the process of this, are you going to be kind of keeping the ongoing results under wraps? Are you going to have updates, maybe every few months? How open are you going to be once the pilot gets underway?
The plan is to respect people's privacy, because the big difference in our trial and the other trials happening is that our subjects are individuals and they're not receiving the basic income as part of a community. So that could influence their relationships and how people in their communities see them. And we want to leave that up to them and their discretion. So we're not going to put out a whole lot or anything about the people during the trial, unless they are very public about it themselves.
Yeah. So the idea is we're not going to say the names of the people. We want them to be able to go through the 2 years not feeling like the public is watching their moves. We want it to be, within the loose scientific nature of what we're doing, as scientifically strict as we can, and give them the ability just to live their lives and let us cover it.
And so this is, I guess, another logistical question that perhaps you aren't aware of, but or you're not aware of how it will play out. But I'm curious, how might the basic income that you'll give interact with the participants' current social benefits? I don't know if you're aware if they get any social benefits currently, if this will push them over the edge. Have you given any consideration to that aspect?
Well, we're talking to different people that are working with similar situations, like Y Combinator. We're talking with about the sort of things they're running into. Generally, it seems that the law, it's different state to state, but generally it seems that there are exceptions that can be made in each state if you're doing it for sort of a research endeavor. And the other thing is, if it's a gift that's less than the maximum untaxable amount, which is $14,000 a year in America, we could potentially define it as a gift. And as a gift, it is if it's taxable on anyone, it's taxable on the giver. But what we're hoping for is to work with local administrations and things like that, and make sure that we can define it as a gift and part of an experiment, and not affect their for the characters we have that are that are receiving benefits, to not affect those. But even if they are, and that becomes a sort of thing where they need to report this sort of a benefit, then it'll still be an informed consent sort of a situation where if the character would rather stay on their benefits, then they can clearly choose not to be in the film. And what's important to us is to find out if what we're offering, $1,000 a month, is more valuable to them for 2 years guaranteed, and then have our bases covered by making sure we have legal on hand to help them get back on their benefits if need be when the program comes to an end. So we don't want to cause anyone any tax hassle or any bureaucratic burden for taking part in this. But yeah, if there are situations where someone loses benefits because the state won't allow it, we'll take that on a case-by-case basis and see if it's worth it to them.
And I mean, in a kind of more philosophical, or I guess more technical discussion about basic income, a lot of people say that in-kind benefits should be transferred to cash benefits. So I'm wondering if they're receiving both basic income and all these in-kind benefits, is it going to have as clean of a result? I mean, in the sense that, are you going to be able to, from a research standpoint, kind of separate the impacts of the social welfare they currently get versus the basic income? Is that a worry at all?
That's not really a concern for us because I'm more of a scientist in nature, but we decided early on that with a sampling size of 15 to 20, that it shouldn't be our goal to have a statistically significant sample size and results. Our idea is to grab attention with real dramatic human stories, like real compelling human stories, and shine a spotlight on the larger, more scientifically significant and statistically significant experiments going on in Oakland and Ontario and things like that. So our goal, as far as it is scientific, is to just show and study the truth about human nature when they have a guaranteed supplement. And it's not about the size of that supplement, and it's not about if it's actually representing a nationally implemented basic income as it would be. It's more about just showing, if you give somebody money, are they going to sit around and do drugs? Are they going to play video games? Or are they still going to be motivated? Are they still going to have dreams they want to pursue? You know, are they going to spend it wisely? Or does the government need to tell people what's best?
Got it.
What can people, how does it change people's day-to-day with a little extra security and a little extra power over their own lives?
So during the process of the film, so in the beginning, I suppose, when in this pre-production phase, you've actually spoken to some basic income analysts. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. Analysts, philosophers, economists, thinkers, writers.
Yeah, we've done about 25 pretty heavy interviews. We've got a few more booked, and there's a lot.
And so what are some of the arguments that you're hearing from them that maybe you hadn't heard before, both for and against? What's the best arguments that you've heard that you haven't personally sort of considered?
We still honestly have yet to hear a very good one against, but we have been seeking out mostly proponents. We do actually have an interview coming up with an opponent. If you listen to the
Intelligence Squared debate.
The Intelligence Squared debate, we're going to be interviewing Jason Furman, Obama's advisor, sometime this month, and that's really interesting to us because it's long been our goal to just sit down and have these discussions with opponents and with people with strong and informed opinions, and see where there's common ground and see where they bring up something new. But having gone mostly to proponents and academics that have been studying it and pushing it for years, what we've mostly learned that's been surprising and different is just different ideas about what's important about it or how to pay. Albert Wenger the other day told us an idea that he's a venture capitalist. He told us an idea that we hadn't heard before, which is one way to pay for it would be basically through quantitative easing, which is, you know, how the government, as far as I understand it at this point, like the Fed makes money and we pump it into the banks. Right. Why not create money and drop it into individual bank accounts of every citizen in America and just use that as a way? If we're already creating money, why not drop it into the bank accounts of Americans? And that was something no one of any of the economists or anyone we talked to had said yet. So there's always these little ideas and spins on it, ways to pay, benefits that would come out of it that we're coming across that are new.
And so I guess the final question that I have is kind of going way back. How did you first come upon the idea of universal basic income? And what was your own personal initial reaction to it? Because I know a lot of people, they kind of think, they're kind of taken aback by the idea, at least initially. So what was the first interaction for you two?
My introduction to the concept was not as UBI, but as a dividend. I started working with the
Climate change? Or,
the Citizens Climate Lobby, who advocate a carbon tax, and the carbon tax would be revenue neutral. So as prices went up on carbon, the dividend from that difference would be redistributed to the people. So that kind of introduced the concept to me, but I didn't think of it as a basic income by any means. It was more to in the attempt to halt the impacts of climate change.
Then for me, I came across it, I imagine as many people did, within the last year. I saw an article, and it struck me as, this is really elegant. This is really simple. It must be impossible. It must be just too expensive, because it just seems too easy. Why wouldn't we be doing it? And being, former engineer, math-minded, I just did the back of the napkin calculations, like, okay, what's our GDP? How many people do we have? How much does this cost? And quickly realized it's just a matter of priorities. We have the money, so it must be a political holdup, and then from there it just blossomed as I did more research. And I think the real turning point for me, where I really knew this was the idea, was in one of those Facebook arguments we all have with someone of the exact opposite point of view. I tend to be arguing on the side of more liberal things, and I have a friend who argues on the side of Republican things, and we just never agree on anything. And I did a post about basic income, and it was the same back and forth, and pretty quickly we were finding ourselves agreeing on a lot of stuff. It was my very conservative friend, and at the end he said, yeah, I'd be for cash payments directly to families. And it struck me that I've never had an agreement with this person in my life, and that this is an idea that can really bring people together, and it excited me.
And so for people that want to get involved and help out with your documentary, where should they go?
Bootstrapsfilm.com.
Yeah, so very important, if you want to be part of the chance to have the drawing, to win the drawing and select a character for our pilot, go to bootstrapsfilm.com and get on the mailing list. And so we'll keep people in the loop through that. We'll have a crowdfund coming up. We'll probably launch in middle of April. A private event in New York City sometime in June to go with the NA Big Congress that's going on. And in general, if you want to get personally involved with us, feel free to just reach out to us through the website. Send us a message. If you're a very wealthy donor and you'd like to be involved, we take emails. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you two so much, Conrad Shaw and Deia Schlosberg of the Bootstraps film. I hope I get to have a follow-up with you both soon. I'm really actually looking forward to this film. So I will hopefully speak to you guys soon again. Thank you.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
All right.